They say a bad workman blames his tools. Well, here in the fish room, I have very few tools to call upon. My go-to items on a daily basis are things like this takeaway pot for scooping things, this paintbrush for brushing things, this loyalty card for scraping things, and my patent-pending trusty toothbrush cable-tied to tweezers tool. Now granted, the tweezers are in fact a tool. I've just made them fairly redundant as that tool because I've cable-tied them to a toothbrush. But granted, they also came as part of a set, so I can't lie, I do in fact also have a pair of cheap tweezers and a pair of cheap scissors, and I do use them from time to time. But these essentially are my go-to items whenever I am aquascaping in the fish room. So with all of that in mind, what would possess me to spend twice as much as that set of 3 on just one tool? Well, I just had to know if it was twice as good. Now, my starting point with most things is complete and utter scepticism, so if I do turn out to like this, then you will know that it genuinely is very good. However, I cannot get it out of my mind that there cannot be that much difference between 2 bits of metal that are engineered in roughly similar ways. So if this does turn out to be noticeably better, I will eat my crock. So today is a day to draw a comparison. Are professional grade tools actually better, and how will it stand up to tools that cost $7.99 for a pack of 3 on Amazon? Now, I don't think it would be fair to use this particular pair of tools. Not only are they different because this is a straight pair of tweezers, but I've also been using these for 2 years. But fear not, I do obviously have a pair of tweezers, and they have never been used as tweezers. So today is a momentous occasion. It is time to cut the cables on my trusty toothbrush cable tied to tweezers tool. Okay, here goes. There we go. So there you go. The tweezers have been removed from the toothbrush, and they're in pretty good nick. They still have a good bit of spring to them. The end points still meet perfectly together. There's still plenty of grip on the inside of both the end points, and I really cannot see how there can be much difference between this and what's inside this box. But let's get it out and see what it looks like. These are the JBL P30 Straights from the ProScape range, and I did get these on Black Friday, which is a blessing because it means I didn't spend quite as much money on them. But they are quite expensive, significantly more expensive I'd say than the set of 3, which cost $7.99. I picked these up I think on Black Friday for like 13 quid, but normally you could pay up to £20 for these in the fish shop. So a lot of money for one tool. Does it look any good? Well, here it is. So immediately I can sort of tell that the quality of the metal looks slightly better, I'd say. Let's use my trusty curved scissors to open the packaging. Good spring. Meets in the middle. One thing immediately that I notice is that they have a nice bit of grip there, which these don't. But otherwise, you know, everything else about them is pretty similar. Similar amount of spring. Obviously the JBL ones are slightly longer by maybe like an inch. It's slightly weightier. Grip. The grip does actually feel quite different. So the grip on this one, so on these ones there's just been like a one sideways plane. I'll do like a little bit of B-roll. But one sideways plane, so they just have a ladder of kind of grippy, I don't know what you call them, but like, you know, texture essentially. On this, they had 2 different angles of mold put in, so that the grip has a slightly firmer texture. Like there's more chance of grip, I guess. So yeah, there is a little bit of difference for sure, but I'm not sure that it's a significant amount of difference that's going to change how they actually operate as tweezers. Certainly feel a bit nicer, a bit heavier in weight, quality of metal feels slightly higher, but all that is immaterial if they do exactly the same job when it comes to planting plants. So I'm going to create a little setup now so that we can test how both of these work when it comes to planting the same plants in the same substrate in the same conditions.
Okay, so I found 2 clumps of dwarf Sagittarius that have a similar kind of root structure on them. They're similarly sized, so we can have a bit of an experiment with what works best. And I've also made half of the soil a bit damp by spraying some water. Quite a lot of water, to be fair, so that it's really quite damp on one side, and then obviously dry soil or substrate on the other side. So we're going to give it a go and just see what works best. So I'm going to try on the dry side first, why not? This is the knockoff cheap brand of tweezers into the dry side. And yeah, I always find this quite tricky that it pulls back up again, doesn't kind of release very well. But there we go, it is now planted. So that's with the cheap knockoff brand. And then this is the JBL ProScape tweezers, again in the dry side. Okay, that went in remarkably easy compared to the other one, and wow, okay. Okay, that was very good. I wasn't expecting that to be any different. Okay, so that's the dry side. Yeah, so the difference there was it just went in and released, and the soil went around it again. I really cannot understand what would be different about the tweezers that would make that happen, but definitely was a lot easier. So let's bring these Sagittariuses back up again. Okay, so now I'm going to go in the wet side. So again, I have to really dig the hole around for it, and it is tricky to get it to stay down. But I don't know if that's going to be any different with the JBL or not. Let's give it a go in the wet. Okay, that really was very good. But what I think as well is that, you know, it's not very fair just to keep trying with the same bits of grass. So let's swap the grass over. Let's use this side with that grass, and then put this grass that side and see if there's any difference. So again, let's do the cheap ones first, and let's just plant them to the wet side, because the wet side is always a little bit harder because there's more resistance there. So wet side, to say it's still the same. I mean, definitely the root structure, I think as I've planted it, I've lost a bit of root structure when I was planting this one, so there's definitely a bit of a difference between the two sides of the root structure, so I think it's fair to swap them. But let's cover that back up and go again. But it's still the same thing, which is it doesn't release well. You really have to kind of clamp it down. Now this is the one that's still got the most root structure left on the dwarf Sag, so it should be the hardest to plant. So let's use the JBL Pro series on this. Put this soil back to normal, and then it's really impressive. It's really impressive. I honestly thought there would be no difference.
Okay, wow. I honestly didn't think there would be any difference between these two contraptions. They're both made of metal. They both have a little bit of friction on the end points to grip. They both spring nicely. I honestly didn't think there could be any difference. But there is a noticeable difference when it comes to planting. When I release with a cheaper one, it just leaves a big hole, and the gravel doesn't cover back up again, and invariably I quite often pull the root structure back out as I remove the tweezers. And I do find, you know, when I'm using, well, I'm normally using this pair, the curved pair, but both of them are, you know, the same sort of style, really, you know, quality wise, that I do find that when I'm using them, I do often have to place a finger next to what I'm planting as I remove it, so that the root system stays down. I was pretty impressed with how this made the plants stay down. As you removed it, as you released the tweezers, it sort of pushed the soil back around the root structure. You could pull the tweezers out of the substrate without any issues with the plant uprooting itself, and yeah, it was just seamless. And honestly, I had no idea that there would be a genuine difference in quality. I mean, I knew that they would look nicer, maybe feel nicer, but I just didn't think the end result would be any different, and it was noticeable. So pretty in shock, really. I genuinely didn't think that was going to be the case. I thought it was going to be like, yeah, don't worry spending any money on these. They're, you know, nice, but not worth it. Just get yourself a cheap pair like this. But actually, no, I think the good news is I can get away with cable tying them back to my toothbrush because I don't need them as tweezers anymore because these are awesome. So yeah, I would recommend you spend some money on decent tweezers. Having spent 2 years using crap tweezers, now realising what I could have been doing for the last 2 years and how much easier it would have made my life, yeah, I feel like a bit of an idiot. But there you go, you live and you learn.